throwing punches, fighting, arguments. Let's talk about another touchy subject. Speculation.
Don't say that.
Specu-Haters.
You have to bleep that word out of your mouth.
Right?
That's right. It makes me so mad, so angry.
Okay, this is an issue. Like, an issue, no pun, but this is a problem. This is a severe problem in the comic book community, in comic book selling, collecting, and investing.
Yeah, speculators are going to bring the whole market down.
Right? This
Just
is the
like
90s all over again.
Exactly. That's what I thought.
Specu-Haters. This is an article written by Key Collector on the ComicTom101 blog that everybody needs to read.
ComicTom101.com/blog.
Okay, so we got to just lay into it. There are stores, there are people, there are publishers who legit hate speculators. They don't want flippers to exist. And they have this false idea that the comic book community who buys papered comics, like actual in-hand comic books, are going to cause the death of this community. And I just think that's so flat out incorrect.
Yeah, I mean, it's common to hear that we are going to go down like the 90s.
Let's address that right now, because it's one of the most frustrating things that I hear about critiques of the show and what we do with our collecting. We put money into comic books beyond cover price, right? Let's chat about how that is just flat out wrong.
Yeah, we're not seeing 5 million copy print runs.
That's right. X-Force #1 back in the 90s. One comic book, 5 million print run. Let that sink in, because right now, what do we got?
Do you understand 2018, the top selling title, if you took it for the entire year, all 12 months, would only add up to 2.8 million copies. That's the top selling title of every month. Not just one title in 1990s.
So you add
That was
together
5 million.
the January top selling comic plus the February top selling comic the whole year?
Yep.
The whole year.
Okay. Just had to get that sorted out in my brain.
Yeah, so let's put perspective on print runs here. Okay, and then
It's 1/10 of what was happening
Yeah.
back in the 90s. This is that's a completely different thing. You can't compare it. It's apples and oranges, and it will likely never happen again. I can't imagine it happening again, and we'd be the first people to tell you if it was happening again.
And people are speculating at that time frame, and they were speculating on a lot of things.
Yeah.
At that time, people were trying to make a quick buck on what they can. Okay,
Yeah, it wasn't just comics.
No, there was Beanie Babies. There was, like you meant, McDonald's toys,
Baseball cards, football
Pokemon cards,
everything.
anything and everything that they thought that they can make some type of money on because they just thought it could be hot and we can speculate on it. And it's a different time now. People are still trying to make some money, but it's not easy.
Well, someone else who thinks it's not very easy is Jim Lee. He was at a recent panel. This is what he said. It's paraphrased because this is a member in the audience. He said something along the lines of this. A couple weeks ago, I went to a comic book store and they tried to pick up a copy of House of X. It was a Friday and there were no copies available, and he shakes his head. How are we supposed to have a growing comic book market if we can't even get the copies 2 days after it comes out? Sorry, Jim. It's not the best way to look at your own industry.
Your average comic store isn't really going to be able to stock that many extra copies in addition to what their customers have already pre-ordered.
Yeah, you can't expect to come into a shop on one of the hottest titles and pick it up 2-3 days after the comic just came out. I mean, you're not the only one who didn't get a copy. So it's unfortunate, but everyone who did get a copy planned ahead. And those who didn't, they just didn't. So it's important to be able to plan, because if you want to get lucky with getting a really hot title at cover price, it takes a little more effort than just showing up and hoping that it's there, unless you're going to come every Wednesday.
Right.
If you can't, then you got to expect you're going to miss something.
Let's chat about Immortal Hulk. This will put a kibosh on the impact that speculators have in saying that it's a negative impact on the community. This chart shows print counts of Immortal Hulk. This was one of the hottest comic books of the year. Ryan, where did we start out with this title?
Looks like comic book shops altogether ordered 84,000 copies of the first issue.
This was pre-orders and people coming in to get more than one issue. This is very common because by the second issue, we saw a steep drop to 43,000 copies ordered.
But that's normal.
That is normal.
They'll normally get a bunch of copies of issue 1, and then from there, it's up to the fans of the series, the people who continue to read it, to kind of keep the momentum going.
I want to throw a caveat that this chart doesn't talk about is conventions. Obviously, we go to a lot of conventions. Jeff, you go to multiple conventions. What was being talked about all last year?
Issue 1 and Issue 2. They were the top 2 books. I mean, obviously the Immortal Hulk 1 and then the first appearance of Dr. Fry.
That's right. I remember going table to table and having dealers ask me if I had copies because they wanted to stock up, because every other customer who was asking about Hulk was asking about particular issues from this run because the run was so hot and people wanted to pay way more money than cover price on these issues. Now, that's something that we see on the convention floor. So seeing like the customers in person over and over and over again, as well as the dealers who dealing with these comic books, we see it a little differently because it shows us that the evidence is there, that the speculators and people who are collecting, they're helping drive this comic book to success.
I'm still frustrated. I still need like the first 5 or 6 issues of this run. It's bugging me.
That's right. Well, you actually bought more than just the first prints of a lot of these.
I didn't get on Immortal Hulk until like issue 7 or 8, and I'm kicking myself for waiting that long because Hulk isn't really a character that appeals to me, and I didn't jump on it at the beginning like I should have.
Well, a lot of people didn't jump on it because between issue 2 and issue 14, we saw basically static growth of this run. One of the hottest runs of the year. Static.
It's kind of hovered in the $40,000 or 40,000 copy range.
That's right. 40,000 until issue 14. What happened at issue 14?
That's when you get like the Betty Ross stuff, like the She-Hulk Harpy spec.
That's right. Go back through our portfolio of content. There are videos where we are talking week over week.
I spoiled it live on a live show. I remember that. Like the day that issue came out, I said that Betty Ross dies, takes a bullet in the head. Spoiler alert. And I said it right afterwards.
That's right.
I got yelled at a little bit in the comments. Rightfully so.
It blew up. We were getting asked to put it in the mystery mail call. We were being asked, do we have copies? People on Instagram were tagging us. People were hunting She-Hulk, Red She-Hulk issues down for the first time in over a decade. It blew up. How did it affect the numbers? Well, here on the graph, we can see that between issue 14 and issue 15, we saw a small hike, close to like 5,000 to 10,000 in ordered comics. But here's the thing. The reveal wasn't in issue 15. The reveal of what happened was in issue 16. But speculators were involved, right? So they hurt the market. We're not going to see this impact the run in a positive way. It couldn't have gone up that much between issue 15 and 16, right?
Wrong.
Yeah. 90,000 copies ordered. More than issue number 1 did.
Yeah, that's a little crazy. And I mean, part of it is because this comic is like an outlier in terms of how good it is. Like you don't get comics like Immortal Hulk quality every day. So, I mean, part of it is because the comic itself is spectacular and a bunch of people were jumping on throughout the run. But that is such a steep hike that something else has to be going on.
Yeah, at a relevant moment in the storyline. So I don't think that's just a coincidence. Granted, I think the reason that that the issues from 2 on stayed stagnant and didn't continue to drop because you tend to lose readership.
That's true.
Right? 2, 3, 4, it drops. I mean, that stayed, like you said, static.
Right.
I mean, that's a big feat, I think, in comics these days. And to keep that much readership to the point where they were interested in knowing what's going to happen at 15 and 16 to dive all in like that, I mean, that says a lot about the story.
Now, we don't have numbers for anything past 21 just yet because those haven't been released yet. But as we're sitting right now, those copies ordered actually stayed above 75,000 up until the most recent issue number 21, which still landed at close to 55,000 copies ordered, which is a full 15,000 more than the 2 to 14 that we originally just quoted.
It's pretty recent too. I mean, issue 23 just dropped today as we're recording this, so
we're going to see
pretty
this
up
number
to the
soon.
minute. Yeah.
Yeah. So clearly, speculation has helped this particular run, and I'd be hard-pressed to find you an example of when it didn't. And the fact that we have stores and publishers, independent publishers, that are doing anything but being positive to individuals who are spending their money on not just comic books, because remind you, they don't have to buy in-hand comic books. They don't even have to go to the comic book store at all. They can go digital, right? I mean, if it's really all about reading, why not just put the issues online and have your comics sell, right? Because if your comic book could do so well, if you really want people to just read your comic, they should just go online and read it, right?
I I mean, look, I say put out your book, have it published. I mean, you never know what's going to be a hit. And if it hits, great. Don't be upset at who bought your book. I would be more proud that people are specking on a book because they're specking because I'm assuming the art's good or the story's great or something is there. All right. And then if you want to make adjustments on your next issue, great. If you're upset that it's not hitting a wider base of people who can enjoy your book and you're not going to grow that base, then put it up on your website. If you want to expose your issue so people can get it for free because that's what you want to do, then great, more power to you, but don't complain. Be happy, be proud, make adjustments, move on. Like, come on, guys.
Especially the independent publishers. This is what really grinds my gears, because it's one thing to have like Marvel and DC not really understand this because they're dealing with such large numbers and there's a lot of things that they're focusing on. They have variants to put out. But independent publishers, like we're talking in publishers that have under a 10,000 print count for issues number 1. I mean, when as much as like 20+% of their audience aren't even reading the comic books that they picked up, and I bet that's a low percentage, but I'm being conservative here, it's just appalling to me. It's like, come on, you're like backhanding the people who are making your comic have any light shine on it because there is so much content being made every single month. I mean, I'll put a link here to Rags. I had a whole conversation with the creators of Rags, and I had to like call them out. It's like, why are you talking down to the speculators that literally made your comic book popular? And guess what? They acknowledged that they made a mistake on camera in the video.